Welcome everybody to another Random Code stream. I'm going to be doing hopefully two things in this stream, at least trying to get them done. I have off the upcoming week, but I'm going to be flying out on Tuesday to Redmond to speak at Redmond. So I'm going to not have a lot of time left to do streams this week, but hopefully we can get a start on this one and maybe finish it tomorrow. So with that, let me get my music going. So I got something going on in the background. I am still pretty tired and sore. I did a 40-mile bike ride. Wait a minute. No. That's what we want to do. Okay. There we go. All right. So I did a 40-mile bike ride yesterday, and weather was perfect. It was really good. We've unfortunately had air quality issues here in Minnesota because of Canadian fires, but it didn't seem to really affect me. I was feeling pretty good through 20 miles, and I got to the 20-mile point. I'm like, wow, this is halfway over. And then I think I might need to get a new bike seat. I also need to lose like 30 pounds. That would help too. But it started to get a little, sore, and my legs were getting a little tired, and like by 35 miles, I was just like counting down the miles going, I know it's got to be close. I know the end's got to be close. And fortunately, I was able to finish. But yeah, I'm glad I do this. It's kind of a benchmark for me to be able to keep doing this every year, this one event in the Twin Cities called Tour de Tonka. And I do enjoy it, especially when the weather was as nice as it was yesterday. You couldn't have asked for better biking weather. But I am still sore and tired, even though I got a really good night's sleep last night. So anyway, I'm glad I have today and tomorrow off to recover and then head off to the airport on Tuesday. So this first issue that I want to go through is this one. This was actually brought up by somebody where I work, and it's a project that is using rocks for tests in a unit testing project. And brought this up to me, and I thought about it. I'm like, that's interesting. So he was creating expectations for a particular type. He said, but when I called verify on it, it wasn't throwing an exception. And he said, and I had removed creating an instance of that expectations. So in rocks, what you do is you create an expectations object. You set the expectations on members that you expect to be called. You create an instance on it. You use that with your code under test. And then you verify it to make sure it worked the way things happened the way you thought it should. In his case, he had refactored a test where the expectations were no longer being used in the way that an instance was being made off of it. And if I look at the code within here, just changing some version stuff around, you'll see that the code that I generate in the mock says, well, I'm only going to verify if was instance invoked actually true. That means that's just a Boolean variable that's tracked to say, did you actually call instance on expectations? So I thought about it, and I'm like, I think what actually makes more sense is to say if you're calling verify and an instance wasn't invoked, if you didn't make an instance, then we should actually throw an exception. That doesn't make sense. There's no reason to make expectations if you didn't actually use a mock object. And that might also be somewhat of a hint to say to you, just like this guy that at work that ran into, which is, hey, I'm actually doing something wrong. So I'm going to change this to throw an exception. Now, the problem that's going to happen is this is going to break hundreds of tests because I have all these unit tests that expect code to be generated in a certain way. And now I'm going to put in like 4 lines of code here that's going to suddenly break all that because the diffs are going to be different. So the intent is what I want to do here is put the code in, actually write an integration test to show that if you create expectations but you don't create an instance and you call verify, that we get the exception we expect. Then I'll see if I'm getting any unit test failures, and if I am, I'll fix that off camera because that's boring to watch. But that's the intent of what I want to do with this first issue. So what I want to do first is let's create a test. So do I have a verify? No, not that. Yes, I do. Okay, verify. Let's put this here. Verify when expectations were made, but instance was never created. So we make a context, we do that, and we do that. Now what's going to happen here is this should succeed. And it does. What we want it to do is say assert that, and then we're going to put this in throws type of verification exception. And then we need to put that expression bodied because that's the way I roll. Okay, now this should fail. And it also fails because the code looks ugly. All right, so we're making an expectation. We're making an expectations object. We set an expectation, but we never create an instance of it. And so we should get this exception. So let's change our code to make that happen. So I believe what we want to do is something like if this was instant. Let's just grab that. Now what we want to do is say, and then we'll do else if. That's another check. We want to say throw new global rocks. Where do we put this? Rocks exceptions. And then we say verification exception. And now we need to pass in a list of failures, which we're going to have 1. Oh, we do have the type mock model here. Okay, that's good. So we want to say here an instance of, oh God. Okay. Was never made. So let's put there. Does that actually work? I think it does. I don't know if this will work off the bat, because sometimes you need to refresh stuff. Nope, it still fails. Wait, that was interesting. Assert that throws value cannot be null, self. Well, that had to have happened because Because all I do is throw an if here, and I say, I believe that all looks right. Let's go into the type and what was created. Well, it's no longer the right thing. There. Oh, that's nice. I never noticed that. I just did it, and then I went, wait a minute, that actually is something new in Visual Studio. So we can always say explicitly rerun the generator. That's nice. So an instance of iDataCreate was never made. Yeah, okay, so now let's try it. It doesn't seem to be failing. So let's go back here. No, no, no. What are you... Hello? What? What? What is going on? Sure. Visual Studio on rare occasions will just go completely wonky with my keyboard. I don't know why. It just does. As you just saw there. All right, so now let's run this and see what happens. It still fails. Why would it fail? Hello? Hello? Oh, I'm using the wrong keystroke. Now that one was my fault. I wanted to use Control ET, and what I was doing is Control RT, and that was running test. Okay, now I'm a little confused. Why is this... Okay, we're getting the right thing here. And it should just roll out a verify, right? Oh, stop debugging. What are you doing? I said debug the test. Okay, now. Oh my God. So I swear to God, that should just work. You know, that to me should just work. All I was trying to do is say debug within test. I should be able to put a breakpoint here, and I should be able to say that. Now are you going to work? Okay, fine, you work now. Where is my line of code? Oh, I'm being stupid. But this is why using source generators is a good thing. Because I want to say, if it wasn't invoked, that's what I meant to do. So now if I say rerun generator, oh, I got to rebuild because it doesn't, I guess, have my changes yet. Oh, I can't do a rebuild on that. What? What? Okay. I just hit F6 and I'm like, just rebuild everything. And I guess it thought, well, no, I don't need to. Now if I come back in here and I say rerun generator. Yes, now I see the not there. Okay. And now if I go into my test and I say run. And now my keyboard is screwed up again. Oh my God. What CS file? Sorry, Lost Guy. I'm not sure what you mean by which CS file. All right, let's run this test. Now it passes. Okay, let's run all the integration tests now. They all pass. That's good. Now, if I go to the analysis test, this is where you're going to see hundreds of tests failing, and it's expected because I've changed the code, the generated code, and that now has diffs in all the files. So I'll show you one of the failures in just a moment. These take longer because it's doing all the compilations in hundreds of tests. So come on. There we go. So you see 203 failed tests. And then if I go into this and I say, let's just look at one of them. And I go through the scrolled output. You see here, now the diff is wrong. It's expecting this to be here where this was here. And I could do something like a find all replace of like that one line of code and switch it to making this, because that's all that got replaced. I don't know. Sorry, I had a sneeze coming on. I could feel it coming. If I did this, and I said, let's take that. No. Yeah, see, this is one thing that Visual Studio is not good at. At least I can't figure out how to do it. I want to do a multi-line replacement. I want to say find this line and replace it with these lines. I want to just say take this and replace it like that, except not that, because we need... And now it passes. So rather than bore the hell out of everybody who's watching and go through all of the files to change this, it's just tedium. I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to do is commit at least my work. This is 382 added exception when expectations are made, but no instance is created. Need to fix unit tests. All right, so at least that's in there. And then I can spend time after the stream or today just going through and changing all those. So Lane, if you're watching, the fix will be coming in 9.3. I don't know when I'm going to get to actually releasing this. It's not a big deal because right now this isn't destructive. In the sense that if you make expectations, you don't make an instance, you call verify, nothing's going to fail. But I think this being a little bit more aggressive here, I think is what should actually happen. Actually, I just realized something. I can't blindly copy and paste because the name of the exception here is going to be different. It's not going to be it's not going to be the same in all the cases. So I'm going to have to go through, get the text. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt to do, but c'est la vie, such is life. So yeah, at least this one, I feel like it's done. I just have to get the test fixed. So the other thing I wanted to work on, and I don't know if I'll get it done on this stream, but it's in another library I have called AutoDeconstruct, and I'm leaving rocks up because I think I can copy and paste some code. So AutoDeconstruct is this thing. Again, it's a source generator. We'll go into an integration test real quick just to show this. We can do something like on generic things. You put this attribute on, and what that will do is automatically create a deconstructor for us. Okay. It's a little hard to do, to actually, like, say, go to definition, because what we really want is go to the definition of the deconstructor. And yeah, it's not easy to show up. It does, I mean, this does work. If you actually step into this, and in fact, let me do that. Do I have this on debug? Good. So let me just run this test. Actually, I could have just shown you the generate code, but if I do a step into, you see it goes into this code, and we get automatic deconstruction, and basically uses any accessible properties that have getters, instance properties. And it creates a deconstructor for us, so we can deconstruct the values out, and everything passes. Great. But the thing is, if I'm defining this type and I want to have an auto deconstruct attribute on it, oh my God, I got to come up to the previous line. I got to type AD or auto D and then IntelliSense fix it. What would be nice is if I was just on the type definition, is to go this and get something that says add auto deconstruct. And then what it would do is it would put the attribute right on the type. It's a small thing, but I think it would be a nice thing. And what I'm also thinking about is, what happens if I was up here? Okay, and I'm just on a type, and I want to be able to add a deconstructor for it. Wouldn't it be nice, too, that if I'm on a definition like this, to just have that same thing come up? And then if it was a type that's in the current compilation, meaning it's a type I've defined, like this one, it would give you the option to say, you know, add on the type or target with assembly, or I don't know what the wording would be. Because there's another attribute you can use, assembly target, not tragic. And then you put the type of, and then you put in the name of the type, or the type of what you want to add a deconstructor for. Now, you can do that for types you own. You can do that for types you don't own, assuming that AutoDeconstruct could actually create a deconstructor for you. And also in Rocks, what I've done is I've added so in Rocks I've added a refactoring that does something similar. You can be on a type definition name, and you can say, I want to add a rock attribute. I want to be able to create that. And so with Rocks, it's always assembly level. But what you can do is you can say, I want to add it to this file, or if I've defined a property in my CSproj file, I can add it to the file that you've defined. And so you can have, like if I go back to my Rocks example here and I go to my integration test, you'll see there should be, it's not the mock definitions. And so I've put all of them in here because I really don't need to see this. This is just really for Rocks to need. And so if I come up to integration tests, did I put that in here? Yes. So I put this Rocks attribute file. You have to define that as a compiler. This is just the machinery that MS Build requires. But then I can also have up here the name of the file I'm looking for. And then if you've defined that, I will use that to give you that as an offering in the refactoring as to where you want to put that. So what I really want to do is basically kind of copy pasta that for this one. Now, there is, for those who are astute in refactorings and analyzers and generators and all that stuff, I do have another task here to restructure the projects because I don't have that yet. What I mean by that is you really need to have things that are based with analyzers, diagnostics, source generators, interceptors in one project. If you're going to do anything with code fixes or refactorings, you want them in another project. There's a reason why it has to do with what you're referencing from .NET packages and the fact that when you do a code fix or a refactoring, you bring in potentially something that has to do with workspaces, and that can start getting into conflicts with what you're doing. So I split this out, and I've been doing this in other packages I've been working on that are Roslyn based, is to have essentially a package project. And that one is the one that is the one that actually does all the packaging. And this is the one that puts everything in the right places. And this is the one that I ship. I need to do that for AutoDeconstruct. I don't have that yet. And I haven't needed it yet because I've had an analyzer, I've had a generator, but now I'm going to add a yeah, I might have to do this now anyway. Well, what I could do is I could create, I don't necessarily have to do all of it. I can create this, what I call a completions project, and put the refactoring in there because it doesn't necessarily need references and stuff, I don't think. I think I can at least make enough progress on it that'll work, but then I need to next do the thing where I restructure all the projects, if that makes any sense. So, all right. So the point is I want to make a refactoring so that if I'm on a type definition, it just works. Now, I think, no, not that, rocks. If I go to completions and I go to refactoring, we do that. We do all this. That's ugly. It's a very ugly piece of code. And we add rock attribute. I know somebody, a guy that's been popping into my streams, Mitch, he did a fix, I think, on this recently. And I think it had to do with the refactoring. Hold on, let me just check something real quick. I want to make sure that I have all the right stuff. So we have closed. Oh no, it was a pull request. Right? Wait, why is it not showing up here? There's none open. I know that Mitch actually made one. So why am I not seeing it here? Oh, no. That was a, was it? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a different, a different package that I have. It's this one. There it is. Okay. So when the code fix is recommended, okay, so it's a code fix thing. Okay, something to keep in mind, but a different project, a different thing. Never mind. Okay, so What I want to do here is create a new project. Just make it a class library. We can say AutoDeconstruct completions. We need to find I'm going to change that anyway. All right, close all this. Let's go to rocks, do some copy pasta. And this will be called, I know you don't need to have this in here. Okay. All right, so now let's look at a refactoring. We want to have a refactoring in here called add attribute refactoring. Whatever. Add, what did I call it? Attribute refactoring. So we can to create the AutoDeconstruct attribute or C target auto. You don't know what any of this is, so let's where's restore? Oh, you're all screwed up, aren't you? Yeah, I know. Oh, fine. I'm going to have to shut that one down, bring it up again, and then I think it will refresh. No, it doesn't. This is one thing I find a little annoying with central package management is if you just put a package here and you don't put the reference here, it just doesn't seem to think, oh, you want to error occurred. Yes, I know. Oh my God. It just doesn't pick up on the fact that you want to have, and this is so long because I have so many things. Okay, so what did I put in here? I put code analysis analyzers. Right. Okay, so I do have those. I have common. I don't have net analyzers, and I don't have workspace. Okay. So these, if I put here, then if I go here and I say build, now it doesn't work because, well, it doesn't have all the things. We'll give it all the things. There. Okay, so at least we got that there now. Why did I make it a partial class? That makes no sense. And then we need to override code refactoring provider, which will force us to implement this. Compute refactorings async. Okay. Great. We need to do some kind of Find parent symbol. What does that do? Ah, yes. So this is where we're looking for all these different syntax types, because we want to see if it's any one of these. An identifier usually covers most of them. Then we want to actually get syntax nodes, semantic model. Yes, we get the symbol info for all these. And then if it's a name type symbol, we'll return it back. So we could copy and paste that out. So let's do that here. And go back to my AutoDeconstruct project. Don't throw an exception. We'll do all this. Oh yeah, we need to say now async. Except you don't know what that is, so let's grab this monster. And we'll put in syntax node extensions. Say static class. Cool. So now we find the parent symbol. Except we want the, we'll call it deconstruct type symbol. Now, I don't know off the top of my head. I guess we're going to figure this out. If I say deconstruct type symbol, syntax, some symbols, note that for the namespace symbol. Well, this one we're getting the type symbol. So this gets the syntax nodes where the symbol was declared in source. Some symbols maybe define more location, like partial classes. That's fine. This property should return one or more syntax nodes only if the symbol was declared in source code and also was not implicitly declared. It's easy implicitly declared property. I don't know if I care about that. I'm going to go on the assumption, and assumptions are bad, but we want to say if, go away. My God, stop trying to help me out. Syntax references count. No, we want length is equal to 0. Why are you? Oh, okay. So let's put a better check. Let's say if is not null, then we're going to move on. We're going to say, and then we don't need to do this. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel just yet, please do so. I would greatly appreciate it. I'm trying to get to 5,000 subscribers, so any new subscriber helps. So thank you in advance if you've already subscribed. I appreciate you for doing that. All right, gotta say that once in a while. So if we have a length here of 0, this is not declared in the current compilation. So only offer target auto deconstruct. Right? Because we only want to do, we can do both if it's in the current type, but we can only do this if it's not in the current type or current compilation. So if we come back here This is where we're doing the fun thing of that property I mentioned before. And yeah, we only, in this case, we only give, well, we're going to give 3, right? Yeah, register refactoring. We give 3 options because we say we can make a definition, but then we can do it for the create and make, or we can do it for just create, or we can do it for make. Doesn't matter in this context. What I really want to do is say, if I want to create a code action, yeah, I want to, okay, sorry. Create a code action regardless of whether the type exists in the current compilation. Now, only create a target AutoDeconstruct code action. Only offer AutoDeconstruct if the type is in the current compilation. So this is greater than 0. And the reason I'm doing all this is because we want to have var actions is equal to new code actions, new list of list code action. And then we'll add to those as needed. And then if we come back here, we can say context add auto deconstruction. And then here is where we pass in, because this is nested. Yes, so we can do actions. Or not. Wait, where does this go? Yeah, it's an array here. So we say add rock definition, and then we have an array, and then we say false. There we go. Okay, that probably made absolutely no sense. But what I want to do is, this case I'm always going to make an action. In this case I may not. And actually what I can do is have a initial capacity of 2, because I know I'm never going to go over 2, but I might only have 1. So what I could have is a private static code action create target auto deconstruct action, and we'll figure out what we need to pass in that later. And then we want a auto deconstruct action. All right. So we can say actions.add. And then here we would add that one. Now we just have to get all the magic to happen with this. The auto deconstruct is a little easier because, well, easier is a relative term. Because we need to do a we need to create a new root Why did I do this up here? Oh, yeah, whatever. Fine. Never mind. Okay. So I'm going to give it the current root, right? Compilation unit syntax, current root. And the first thing we're going to do is say all we need to put on the current node. No, don't do that. Do this. Compilation unit syntax. You should know what that is. Okay. Why is this a problem? Oh. No, don't do that. No, why are you making that an error? Go away. That's... Okay, fine. I get... Because it's... Yeah, okay. Whatever. So we can pass in root. That should be fine if we just say right here that. Okay. And now what we want to be is just having this attribute on the type itself. Right? All this code here is figuring out one of the arguments to the type, which technically we could put in, but the generic case for this refactoring, I think, this is a way you can say search for extension members so that you search the entire compilation, which is not ideal, and you really shouldn't be doing it. I'm still going to debate whether I should pull that out or not. But what I really want to do is add this attribute list to the type. Right. So actually, and I add it to the root because in this case, it's an assembly level attribute. What I really want is the current node, right? Oh, syntax node add. This may not be as easy as I was hoping. Yeah, syntax reference. What I want is something that I can say, take the current, like if I said syntax node is equal as identifier name syntax, I could say with If I say type declaration syntax, see there I could say add attribute list. Now here I have a name type symbol. And this gives you declaring syntax references. What does a syntax reference give you? Gives you a span of the syntax tree. It's not very helpful. We can get to the point where we have a name type symbol, but I need to actually get to the okay, maybe I'm overreaching here. Maybe. What I'm doing here is I'm basically saying if you're on anything that can be referencing a type, then do this auto deconstruct. And the problem with partial files is which partial file do you put the attribute on? Because what happens if this... No, it wouldn't pick up anything from a source generator. I don't think. But what happens if you have multiple partial files or partial definitions of a type? Which one do you pick? Do you just pick the first one? What happens if that's not the one the user wants to put it on? So that's the thing I'm struggling with, if it doesn't make sense, is if I have a type definition like I have up here and I want to put auto deconstruct on it, I would want to do the dot and then it offers up that refactoring, which is great. But if I made this partial, whether I made it partial, whether I made it or not, this array here is going to have at least one. If it has more than that, now I'm kind of screwed-ish because I don't know which one. Because you saw here, if I said 0 syntax, this actually may cause a parse to happen to recover the syntax node. I wonder if I say the span on the node that I'm given. Well, actually, if the span equals can you do that? Yeah, I mean, you need to say var x is equal to. But a span tells you, does it equal this span? Now, this is technically not perfect because the span of the node may actually be the span of the same node in two different partial types. This isn't that specific because a span, if I go to text span, that tells you a start and end a length, but it doesn't say like is this span in a particular source document? Or is it referenced to like a node? It just has essentially location information. So could this be good enough and just say find the first syntax reference in here that has the same span? And then we use that syntax node. Because it says it could do a recompilation if I say get syntax. Original reference syntax node. Because if it does another parse, those two may not be the same. And it makes sense because if you especially dealing with partial types or partial definitions, this may just have parsed the current tree. It may not have parsed other trees. That's what I'm guessing this is hinting at. And so if you say, well, I know there's other references in other places, then go get me the node for this. And it might have to parse that, and so it would be different. And there's no way from a node to say reference, right? Oh, it is a syntax. Common syntax references can be used to regain access to a syntax node without keeping the entire tree in source tree memory. I don't know if I say var reference is equal to single. If I say is equal to the node's reference. Because if that's the case, now we have the original name type symbols syntax node reference. Now, if I say here class declaration syntax, I believe that the class damn it. This is one thing I don't like about the way that this brings up stuff, because it's saying it's a partial class. It's pulling one file to say this is the one that has it, but there's more to this than that. And it doesn't help. The reason I'm complaining about this is because I want to see what the actual it derives from type declaration syntax. And I believe a class declaration syntax, a struct declaration syntax, they all derive from type declaration syntax. If that's true, then what we could say here is var target node is equal to reference await reference get syntax as a type declaration syntax. And then we pass that into here, except we're going to make that a type declaration syntax. Type declaration node. Okay, so at this point, I believe if all my assumptions, We can add an attribute list. Okay. All of that last 10 minutes may have been like, what is he doing? But what I was trying to do is get to... Why is it complaining about this? Oh, because I'm saying if type is not null is what you should be offering up. There. And now what I can do is on this node, I can say add attribute list, which will give me a new type declaration syntax. And that's what I can use when I get all the way back to saying create a new root. We can we could save var new type declaration node is equal to this, add attribute lists. And of course, this is going to not be correct. But then we can say var new root is equal to current root, replace node, type declaration node with new type declaration node. And then here, we want to say return code action, create at AutoDeconstruction. We can say AutoDeconstruct as the thing. There will be no nested ones. Right. What is this? Yeah, that doesn't work. So we need a document. So we need to pass in as well a document. Because we could say here document with syntax root of the new root. That works. Okay. Now, where am I getting the document from? That's all the work that I've been doing up here. Oh, that's what you get from the context. Okay. But what I'm also doing is trying to say, if you put it in a different spot, that's where the actual document should be. Because you're going through the projects and all that stuff. And so by the time I get down here, it's either the one that was found from the current context, or it's going to be the document target of the one that you put in the project properties. This one is even more different. Because you don't know which document this node is in. So that makes it even more fun. I can say pass in a document here, but I don't know. Yeah, I do. Because what I'm saying here is, well, no, I don't. The node up here is, it could be potentially an object creation expression. Because you're saying like new something type. And I want to add an AutoDeconstruct to it. Well, that may be defined in a different document. And so how do you get the document from a node? Document from syntax node. No, you can't do that. Well, that sucks. How to get smashed. You have to call get semantic model for the compilation that contains that tree. So well, if I said solution get document on the tree, let's actually get the solution. And then down here, I said solution.get document for a syntax tree. Excuse me. Var type declaration tree. No, document. Except we want to do it here. And all we need it for is if is not null. Get rid of that. And that tick mark, why those showed up. And we do that, we do this, and then we do this, and we do that, and we do type declaration document. Whew. Okay, so fine, I don't have inherent doc. Yeah, that's a good one. Yay. Okay. So now we're passing in the document to here. And we can say AutoDeconstruct on that document with the new syntax root. Easy. Easy. Oh my God. You know what I forgot to do? Well, let's that's rocks. I need auto. Yeah. Let's see if we bring the changes to 22. Yeah. You have 2 uncommitted files. We want to bring those there. And so what we should have had, yeah, we preserved those things. Perfect. That's nice. It's nice they added that in for people that are stupid like me. Which is, I didn't actually create the branch. I was doing everything on my main branch, and that was wrong. I should have actually been making a branch. So this now takes all the changes you've had and just pushes them into the branch that you just made. So good. Git commit. 20 started work on the refactoring. All right, so I got some work done on that. Not finished. I'm not too surprised that I didn't get all this. Don't blame me for the spelling of the word. That's the problem of the team that defined this. So now what I need to do is say, well, we're going to add the target AutoDeconstruct attribute. And yeah, add it at the tree root note thing, and make sure we have it in the right document. This is more going to be like rocks. So there's still definitely some work to do on this one, but I'm going to save that for probably tomorrow morning and work on this some more, because it definitely needs some work. But yeah, I'm somewhat happy with this in terms of how it's working. I can also see this completely falling apart, because what happens if I'm going to have to test what happens if the definition's in another document. What happens if I have multiple partial classes? Which one is it going to pick? Is it going to pick the right one? Yada, I have no idea. There's a lot of things that I've been assuming here that, even though it technically gets rid of most of the red here except this one, because we're not returning a new code action, there's a whole bunch that could go wrong with this still. So hopefully in the next one I can get to the point where I got the code written, I can start writing some tests, and hopefully make some more progress, because again, Tuesday morning I'm leaving to fly on a plane, so I won't really be able to get back to this until the following week. But this is a good stopping point for now, so I want to thank everybody for watching, either live or in the future. If you haven't subscribed to the channel just yet, please do so. I'm trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. That's a lot, but that's my next goal. So any new subscription helps. If you've already subscribed, I appreciate you. Thank you for doing that. Again, the next time I'll be doing a code stream will probably be tomorrow morning, but I'm also going to be doing some Halo 3 streaming this afternoon and or evening. So if you're interested in that, check that out. But with this stream, I am now done. Thank you all for watching. Take care, and I hope to see you in the future.